Hey everybody, what's going on? Another Wednesday, another Heavy Metallurgy Album Club. Good to see you. We're a man down today for a little while. Kellen got called in for some work meeting thing. Hopefully he'll be here later, so he might be stepping in later. But I'm Marty. Good to see you. I'm joined by two awesome co-hosts. We got the morbid one down here, Jim. How you been?
Doing good, man.
Good.
Not much new to report in my world, but things are well. So
Good.
we'll get to what's been spinning. So cover's a little beat up, but here is Satan's Suspended Sentence, second release with a different singer. This guy has a good voice as well. Very, very, very kind of scratchy, throaty kind of a vocal. Still great vibrato. Good in the way of British heavy metal stuff. I think I do prefer the debut, but it's solid and a good visit. Good ripping leads in here and stuff.
I have never seen that cover. I've never seen that record. Cool.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Never
You should
seen
check.
it. No.
You should check it out, man. Like I said, the vocals are interesting. It took a little getting used to. I didn't know that Brian Ross wasn't on it, but it's good stuff.
Huh.
That was a nice find here at a local record store. This I bought after the Dissection album club. I saw people talking about Ventureland
Great
in the
record.
chat. I'd never heard this, and I loved it, man. I picked this up. I listened to it and immediately ordered it. So this is a reissue, a Don Swano's remaster, but sounds great. Yeah, this record rules. So if you're like me and you hadn't heard this and you like that Dissection style, they're not like Dissection, but in terms of them being like very melodic and sort of like in that sort of melodic Black Death realm. A great pickup. It's a really killer record.
Now Sacramento and Dawn should enter your playlist too.
Well, Sacramento I've listened to for years. I checked out the Dawn. I thought it was okay. I didn't like it as much as his Ventureland. It was cool, but the Ventureland I really connected with that right away. Yeah, Evokin. This is Antithesis of Light here. In my humble opinion, there's no such thing as a bad Evokin album. I like them all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of like prepping for some video I'll be doing with Kellen at some point for the new record. So spinning all this good stuff. But yeah, Evokin rules. Always in the mood to listen to these guys, so I'm really excited about their new album as well. So, yep, that's what's been on my list this week.
Awesome. Good to see you, Logan. Good to see you. How you been?
Yeah, been good. Been busy. Was in Chicago 2 weeks ago, and then this past weekend I went up for basically a very quick family trip to the North Carolina mountains. It was great to get back to the home state, even if it was just for a day and a half. Beautiful up in the Asheville area. It looks like honestly they're doing well. It was coincided with about a year anniversary of the Hurricane Helene up there, and man, they're recovering extremely well. So cheers to all those hardy people up there in the North Carolina mountains.
Hell yeah,
beautiful area. Inspired me to pull out one of my favorite like Asheville, Western North Carolina projects. This is U.S. Christmas. I know maybe the name could be a little bit better, but I don't know where they got the inspiration from, but
not a lot of U.S. Christmas tattoos out there in the world. I don't know.
Probably not.
Out this logo. What does that mean?
It's an interesting reindeer looking fella.
Yeah, true.
But no, this is their 2010 album, Run Thick in the Night. Very long, drawn out, kind of like doing what Neurosis was doing, but at the same time, a little bit more steeped in Americana, and I don't know, beautiful for walking through the mountains, doing some hiking, doing some drinking by a campfire, which all did happen over the weekend. So it was fun to get up there. And then still diving into the Chicago pickups. Melanie dropped a great review of the new Revocation album. By the way, everyone check it out. It's was dropped on Monday. New Masters, New Gods, I believe is the name of it.
Yep.
They very much are still in that like death metal. Revocation does death metal sound right now, and embracing it with all these features from different death metal artists, which is really cool. But my favorite Revocation stuff, they still have that thrash edge and speed to it. And this EP, Teratogenesis, which came out in 2012 is all straight ahead thrash with a little bit of death metal influence sprinkled in, kind of how I prefer my revocation. This is one of those Scion EPs, if anyone remembers those, where a car company was like, "Oh yeah, we like death thrash. Let's throw them some cash to put it out." So you could spin this while driving. I think they put out
The toaster, the toasters on wheels.
toast, yeah. Simpler times back then. And then another Chicago pickup, 3 Inches of Blood, some Canadian heavy metal from the 2000s. This is their 2009 third album, I believe, or fourth. Here Waits Thy Doom. So I always like this guy's vocals. He goes very much for that Halford-esque shriek, but then at times it crosses over into almost like a death metal kind of, scathing delivery. And it does have some power metal intensity at the same time. So this is how you get me to like almost power metal. Throw some like harsh scream vocals in there and I'm all in. But they do sing about, being metal and killing witches and all the great topics that we love. And then happy October, everyone. This is my favorite month of the year. I got my pumpkin beer. Been sipping on that. And this album kind of coincides with what we're about to talk about, Hellwell. This is Manilla Road's Out of the Abyss. Kind of a creepy feel to this album, which is mirrored on what we're about to talk about.
Kind of thrashy, too.
And very thrashy, kind of heavy. Shelton really gets up there with his vocal range. He does some like crazy falsetto screams. There's a couple songs about Lovecraftian stuff on here, which made me, this Hellwell album made me think of it. But Return of the Old Ones is my favorite song on this by far. What a beautiful, like, gives me shivers just listening to it. So yeah, it kind of fits the Halloween atmosphere, which we're kind of entering in. So, but that's it for me.
All right. Hey, Tim. Hey, Eric. Hey, Brian. Hey, everybody. Hey, James. Good to see everybody in the chat tonight. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, I've been listening to a lot of Hellwell, but also threw in some time. I picked up a cheap copy online of Thierfing's Aircraft. Man, this is one of those things that I got their first couple albums as promos back in the day. Was underwhelmed by them, gave them away, and I kind of regret it because now I've been listening to a lot of Monogarm, which these guys are fellow countrymen, Swedish. It's Viking metal, a little bit more on the black metal edge, but they do go kind of folky as well. And now I'm hearing it differently these days, and now I'm like, I got to go get these records again. So giving stuff away is nice and fine and generous, but sometimes it bites you. That's a good record. Man, this one I haven't spun in ages, and it's kind of blown me away. But this is Seen Through the Veils of Darkness, the second spell by Norway's Gehenna. Man, it has been a hot minute since I spun these guys. They're kind of a mid-paced black metal band. They've got simplistic synth work, which I guess is somewhat in line with what we're talking about tonight, but not black metal, of course. But this is just a really well-written. These guys were great. And then as they went on, they got a little bit more aggressive, a little more death metalish, which was kind of, the Norwegians went either the path of death metal or they went electronic and weird. They didn't, I would have, a few more albums in this vein would have been great. Just very well written, mid-paced, excellent black metal from Norway. Really good. Finally, I've been meaning to buy this. I finally pulled the trigger. I got Tavasland by Havakrunu. My first Havakrunu CD. And God, these guys are so freaking good. It's just, how do you classify it? You want to say black metal because they're, Finnish. They got the really pained, intense vocals, but they're a lot more than that. There's a lot of weird stuff going on in this album, but it's not so weird that it's alienating. It's just it all to the service of the song. They're just very interesting, very unique band. Finally got the Tavasland, and I've been cranking this a lot, especially in the vehicle. But I've been listening to a lot of Hellwell. Beyond the Boundaries of Sin, the debut Hellwell album came out in 2012. For those of you unfamiliar, this is a side project of Mark Shelton. Hellwell was initially billed as a joint venture between Shelton and an old associate named Ernie C. Hellwell, who was credited as lyricist, bassist, and keyboard player. But in reality, the project was entirely the creation of Shelton, whom E.C. Hellwell was merely a heteronym. So there you go. And there's some other things of note. This album has some guest vocals. You've got guest vocalist by Brian Hellrody Patrick, lead vocals on Deadly Nightshade and The Heart of Ahriman. Drummer is Johnny Thumper Benson. If you look him up on Metal Archives, he wasn't really in anything else, so I don't know who this guy was. And then also Josh Castillo was also credited for some bass work, who was also in Manilla Road during this era. So very much a of the scene type of release. And of course their second album too, which I don't know if you guys got around to listen to this or not, but this is Behind the Demon's Eyes. And after listening to this week, I'm like, oh, maybe I should have picked that one, but I did not. We went with the first Hellwell, Beyond the Boundaries of Sin. First impression, Logan.
So thanks to Marty hyping this one up throughout, I guess, the Metallurgy career. I have heard this one before tonight. It was only once or twice, and like the impression was always, whoa, organs, whoa, crazy, omnipresent, keyboards, and that was always the main takeaway, And I think whenever you dive in, that's probably what your main thing is going to be. It kind of does overshadow the rest of the performances, at least initially. And the first impression was me just being like, man, it's almost too much of a gimmick initially, like too much of a presence. And, I'm like, I kind of wish I could hear the riffs a little bit more, or, make out what the individual songs are trying to do a little bit more. And I will say that is just only a first impression. And then as soon as you kind of get used to the keys, and especially the atmospheric building that they're doing, you kind of get past it. But it did take a spin or two. I mean, outside of the keyboards, the vibe and the songwriting did kind of sound like Manilla Road. So I could definitely see the Shelton, stamp there, especially in the vocal delivery for sure. All in all, though, this was probably a good pick for us starting this on October 1st. Like the overall vibe is just inherently a little creepy. Like you're walking into a downtrodden, dungy church that should have been condemned like 30 years ago. And, you could fall through the floorboards or something like that. And all of a sudden, all the candles start, going off or something. I don't know, it was very much a mood album, even from the first spin. So, was definitely feeling a little iffy about the 70s weirdness of like the organs, but I could tell that there was more here, and that I was ready to try to digest and get into this unique sounding album, because I will say I don't think I've heard something quite like this with just the organs as prevalent as they are in the mix. So yeah, even from first spin, it was unique and interesting.
All right, Jim, your thoughts?
Yeah, always a pleasure to hear Mark Shelton play guitar. I'm definitely a fan of Manilla Road, and thanks to Marty and some other Northern Michigan friends turned me on to them. Great riffs here. I think the drums were right on here. Marty says the bass player was played by someone else. Maybe I'm looking at the wrong record here.
Shelton did, I think, played most of the bass, but there's this other guy who was in Manilla Road was also credited for some bass, according to Metal Archives. So okay. I got a feeling it was just whoever was there and helping him out. And it was, he recorded stuff at home. So
yeah, well, either way, the bass playing it definitely stood out to me. Like it's really clear. You can hear it all the way through. It's never buried, and does a great job supplanting the guitar. Mark's sound on this record is kind of like a very crispy kind of guitar sound, a lot of highs in it. So I liked that mid-range bass there that sort of propped it up. Made the overall sound kind of enjoyable for me. And the organs too, when they're played with like a counterpoint, I like them, but I do have a little bit of an issue with the organs, but not for their sound or their presence. The thing about the organs on here is there's a lot of following the guitar, a lot. The organs instead of kind of being more of their own instrument, creating their own voice on the record, it was just kind of they buttress up the riffs with the same notes, and after a while it kind of got distracting for me. It was just like, if the guitar is going dun dun, then the organ was going dun dun. There was a lot of that, and if Mark's riding the E, he's down picking or something, then the organ's just going dun 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 like along with him, and that's all fine. Like, it didn't ruin my experience of the album. But I have to highlight that as it's something I kind of noticed right away, that there was a lot of following the guitar and not really, the organ speaking for itself. And I kind of felt like that was a bit of a wasted opportunity. So, not to speak ill of the dead, Mark Shelton, God bless him. He's a credit to heavy metal. And this is still a really great album. The riffs are super strong. And, like Logan said, this is a spooky record.
It is. Yeah.
And it wouldn't be spooky without the organs. And it is a perfect October for one choice. I don't know if, Marty, you intended that or not, but that's the way it played out.
That's the way it worked.
And it worked out really well. So I'm glad we're covering it. I really enjoyed listening to it. But I wanted to call that out as a criticism there, that I think that, and I'll wait to go into this for my question, but a little bit of a missed opportunity on the organs.
All right. Yeah. And really, I would have to agree with you, Jim, on some of the organ stuff. The organs for me were an acquired taste. And you're right. They follow the riffs pretty much verbatim. There's a few exceptions here and there, but it does feel a bit like a missed opportunity to really kind of add a little bit more space. But having said that, what makes up for the fact the organ thing is the sound. I really love how organic and rich that sound is. It really that's a great buttress. It buttresses up the riffs really well. And multiple listens, the more I absorbed it, the organ, it becomes kind of an atmosphere to me. I'm so focused on, I like the fact that Mark's voice is far enough in the mix where it needs to be. And I really focus on what he's saying here. He's just got that gristled wizard. He's always had it. It got even more gristled after he crushed his voice after he recorded one of the albums. He went too hard and it fucked up his voice forever. But I just love his voice. He's got such a rich, earthy tone, and just as rich and earthy as his playing. But yeah, it's just one of those things where it only took a few listens and then it just started to click with me. I think it was James saying that I wouldn't even bring up Manilla Road. This thing is a whole nother monster. I see what you're saying. I wish I could fully agree, but it's recorded. It sounds the same as a Manilla Road record. It was recorded in the basement there. And it's hard to deny Mark's playing style, the solos. I will say it's darker. I think it's a darker vibe than Manilla Road for sure. But brings me to my question. This Hellwell project and album landed during a very prolific time for Mark Shelton, with Manilla Road in full swing. Do you think the inclusion of the organ and seemingly darker overtones were indeed enough to separate the two projects? Was this even an important thing to consider? Do you think the similarities, or perhaps the subtle differences between the two, could have been the reason why Hellwell isn't spoken about with as much reverence as Manilla Road? Logan.
Yeah, this is a interesting question. Honestly, interesting food for thought, because you have, I think this is arguably the most prolific era of Manilla Road outside of like the initial '80s era, right?
Yeah.
And so while Shelton is at his peak of releasing Manilla Road albums, I mean, like for example, 2012, he released Playground of
the Damned, and then
in
the year
2011.
after, yep.
Mysterium in 2013.
Yep.
and then another one in 2015, and I think the final To Kill a King in 2017, which paired with the second Hellwell album. So there was he was coming up with just a lot of music. So you would think, why have a side project if you're releasing like 4 albums within a 5-year time span? Do you know? But I think it's because he, for some reason, did designate this as something different, and maybe he wanted to have this organ. I would love to know like where he came up with the idea to have such a prevalent organ sound for an album. Like,
Well, Deep Purple and someone else
is it
mentioned
just
Uriah Heep.
Deep Purple? Is it this? It's just prominent 70s. Like,
I don't know. What's
I-
curious to me is why he was trying to put up this whole other persona, this E.G. Hellwell, Ernie G. Hellwell. It just, why? What's the point?
That's what makes me think that this was meant to be entirely not connected to Manilla Road. And,
Yeah.
He didn't want people to think of Manilla Road to a certain extent. Like, I don't know if you guys were aware of this album when it came out. I was certainly not. I don't think I got any kind of advertising for it, especially like the follow-up. Like, I know I was aware of Manilla Road around the 2017 era, but I didn't know there was he had a different project called Hellwell. So I feel like he was intentionally not marketing it in the same way as Manilla Road. And Shelton, to me, strikes me as a character who doesn't care or didn't care if his music was listened by the masses or just enjoyed by him and whoever stumbled across it. Like, I think he enjoyed making music for the sake of making music, and not that it was intentional that he like kind of hit it, but it seems like, at least from this perspective and finding Hellwell in the way that I did, thanks to you, Marty, that he wasn't trying to get it out there as much as Manilla Road. Manilla Road was the focus. It was like the peak of their comeback era. They were doing festivals and stuff. I think he wanted that to be a focus, and this side project was probably just an avenue for him to exercise those Deep Purple demons that he was apparently dealing with. The purple people eaters, the Deep Purple people eaters. So, and I mean, all the more power to him, because I do think in this album does sit a Manilla Road album to an extent. I mean, I heard, or archives said, one of these songs was supposed to be a Manilla Road song. And when you listen to the tracks, it does sound somewhat similar to some of the stuff that I heard on like To Kill a King. But the fact that the focus is so dark and so Lovecraftian, and that the keys are so omnipresent, maybe that's why I ended up enjoying the keys and the organ feel. It's just because that's what separates this from Manilla Road, basically. I mean, that is one of the two big things. I mean, other than that, it could be a Manilla Road album, but I think the organ does a lot to make Hellwell its own entity. And I mean, I kind of, it did click with me. And even the verbatim following of the guitar riff ended up clicking with me, which that was initially what I was having issue with. I was like, why are we trying to keep up with like a very cool, metal guitar riff? But it just adds to the atmosphere and the feel of it. So I think this was meant to exist as separate as possible from Manilla Road. And, just how prevalent the organ is kind of an example of that.
Right on, Jim.
Yeah, it's a good question, Marty. I don't really blame the organ for keeping Hellwell like maybe less on the radar. I really don't know what it is, because I mean, when I take the songs, for what they are on their own, they are super strong Mark Shelton written songs, great riffs, great lyrics, great vocal delivery. And we'll get into, the key aspects of that later. But it is a bit of a mystery for me. Now, I wasn't, like Logan, I wasn't really, I wasn't into Manilla Road much at that time. I think I just met you like late 2011, early 2012. So it was, I think Manilla Road and our conversation came later. So Manilla Road even wasn't on my radar at that time. So I don't really know what the environment was like, so it's hard for me to kind of speculate. But when I just take the music and put it side by side, obviously Manilla Road's my favorite. You know, that's the strength. You know, that's the go-to, and so many metal classics there. But Hellwell is still super solid, and I like the grittiness and harshness of Mark's vocals on this record. I like, you know, the variety of vocals that he puts on display. The lead work is always just as solid as ever. And yeah, you know, to Logan's point, the organ is what makes it different here. You know, you put aside the fact that it does follow the guitar a lot, it wouldn't be, you know, that far removed from Manilla Road if the organ wasn't present. Um, so given metal's in and out dalliance, with organs over the decades, I don't think that would be a big turnoff. I mean, especially if, like, even if you're not into the organs, the fact that it's just kind of, powering the riff even more forward because it's playing the same notes. It doesn't seem like it would be, even if it wasn't your favorite instrument, because it is sort of, mimicking the riff, and it shouldn't have, dissuaded you from like full and enjoyment of the record. So this one's a mystery. It's hard for me to define. I thought, as I was thinking, I was like, yeah, I'll come up with a good answer, as you said earlier, but I'm kind of struggling to put my finger on the pulse of like why this one wasn't spoken in higher regard. Maybe it was just because, I think, Logan, I'm riding your coattails here, but because there is so much Manilla Road to pick from, maybe fans were saying, well, why do I need this? I've got all this other stuff. I got all this other, Manilla Road to grab off the shelf at any given moment. So yeah, I kind of a cop out answer, if you will, because it's sort of a non-answer. but I really don't understand, except, just to say that if maybe some of his fans just really didn't like organ at all, and maybe that was the reason. But I don't think, for me, that it is something that like ruins the record. I do think that compositionally, there could have been some better choices made, but it does make it separate, and it's just a new way to experience Mark's sound. So, if I had, been into them as soon as this album had came out, 13 years ago, into Mark's playing, I mean, I would have embraced this record. So yeah, this is a tough one for me. I really don't get it.
Well, to look at the question at the end here, why isn't Hellwell maybe spoken with as much reverence as Manilla Road? I think it's simply because of Manilla Road's legacy, the history. The formative years of Manilla Road are, obviously start with Crystal Logic and go on before the cutting off just before the break off, before they broke up. That I think that string of albums will always cement Manilla Road in the halls of Valhalla, so to speak. And really, what was happening with Manilla Road, Playground of the Damned was, man, there's some great songs on that record, and it's just really, the production is really rough, really, really, really lo-fi, surprisingly lo-fi, because it seems like the album that came before it was a little fuller, a little more lively. And then Mysterium, I love the album cover, and it's just an album, one I rarely gravitate towards when I'm in a Manilla Road mood. So it seems like the run that time was very prolific, but maybe not as I don't want to say good, because it's all good. It's just maybe they're just too much all at the same time. There may have felt like a little bit of sameness at times. But so then when you get into this Hellwell, adding the organ to it, I think it does set it apart. And is it enough? I mean, if this came out as a Manilla Road record, I don't think anybody would have really batted an eye at it, because it sounds to me a lot like Manilla Road, just darker. And ultimately, the thing that I think really warmed me up to the organ sound is how much of an awesome compliment it is to Shelton's voice. That his voice is kind of like the organic representation of an organ, an old beat up, scratched up with dings out of it church organ that had been pushed off into the back room while they switched over to a synthesizer. It's that old church organ vibe is what his voice feels like to me. But yeah, I mean, I think he did enough to separate the two projects, but I think it was kind of unnecessary. And if you're starting off with a new, we all know that there's so many bands, starting off a brand new band, if it doesn't have that, the legacy name at the top of it, it's probably going to maybe disinterest, or maybe some of the longtime fans just didn't know. I mean, it's hard to say. It's hard to say what the factors were here, but I really think that Hellwell and 2 albums weren't ever going to topple the legacy of Manilla Road. And I think Shelton knew that and was fine with it. Like, I know people that knew him and said he was an amazingly humble guy. I didn't know the guy, but I think he's just happy to be creating music and back. And I'm just very thankful he got to reunite the band and go on this world journey to see that fans were finally coming around to the Manilla Road sound, because I'm late to the Manilla Road. I didn't get into them until the Atlantis Rising return album came out. That's when I fell into the Manilla Road and fell in love with them. But I think that yeah, I don't know. You watch old interviews with him. He talks about how they were pretty popular in Europe back in the old days, but it just doesn't seem like it was fully realized until later. Anyway, let's talk about the music and musicality and composition of Beyond the Boundaries of Sin.
All right. So one of the first things that the presence of that organ did was it initially conjured up like this whole current scene of like more retro occult rock. Like there's been this whole trend since about like the late 2000s, early 2010s. Devil's Blood, Blood Ceremony, Jex Thoth, Green Lung, so many different bands we'll use the keys predominantly and just other instruments to kind of bring about a more 70s like Jethro Tull or Deep Purple, just more of like the proto metal kind of sound, and play around with that. So it definitely, when I first started diving into this album, that's where I was like approaching it, and maybe that's where that's why I struggled getting into it, because as soon as I was like, let's just look at this as more of an actual heavy metal album. Like they're not trying to play retro 70s rock music underneath here.
There's riffs.
There's fucking riffs. There's
Yeah.
plenty of riffs, and it is still a very guitar dominant album. And as soon as I like basically removed the only looking at the organ and started focusing more on the guitar riff, this album kind of opened up to me, and I did start to see it more as like just a traditional Manilla Road, like American heavy metal album. And there's some great riffs on here. And then when you start to see the riffs first and then the organ second, I think that's when the magic of the album kind of starts to happen, where the organ really is just an extra piece, an extra feeling and, layer to add to the atmosphere. Because this album is atmospheric in a way that I don't think Manilla Road could normally achieve. I mean, this album definitely has atmosphere from Out of the Abyss, but the presence of those keys and stuff on tracks like let me see, there's one in particular I want to highlight real quick, Tomb of the Unnamed one.
That's
like
my favorite song on the album.
Oh man,
that song is the best
Dude,
song on the album.
When it really opens up into this like just atmospheric chorus part, you're like, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Manilla Road couldn't have done this because the keys do end up being utilized for a lot more than just following the riff verbatim. I think that is only on like, it might be on only like three or four songs where it's like basically copy and paste, but there are a couple of tracks where they do step back and are more focused on being in the background and, giving an atmosphere to it. I just think in the beginning, it's just like that elephant in the room. You can't ignore, like on the first couple tracks, that the guitar riff is basically, copied by the organs verbatim. So I like that's initially why I thought the whole album was like that. But it really does start to open up, and the organ is used for more than just mirroring what the guitar work is doing. And I think it just makes the guitar that much heavier. It makes the album feel that much heavier and almost feel that much more metal in a way. Like it feels ominous, and like I want to be able to I don't know, go out on like a walk or like at midnight with this album and have it be very foggy, try to be like near the lake or a waterfront, and kind of get lost in it, because this does have that Lovecraftian feel to it, and it is transportive, I think, and I owe that to the keyboards. Like, so I went from thinking that this album could be more like Devil's Blood and Blood Ceremony to, at the end of the day, it's just Manilla Road. But I mean, I put it right up there with Slowfag and Sirith Ungol as well, as like actual contemporaries of what the sound and what the actual songwriting sounds like, and it's oddly progressive at times too. Like, there's especially that last track is a very progressive oriented song, which is how it
Very dark
opens and
too.
builds, and and the tracks themselves, I think, because of the organ, that adds to it feeling like a progressive metal album. But just definitely, I think the way the tracks feel windy, and maybe the songwriting is a bit more akin to like longer, Child of Time, Deep Purple, but I think the songwriting feels a bit progressive as well. The guitar work is a major highlight for me. Shelton is a wizard, as everyone is saying, and he's mainly a guitar wizard. The solos are amazing.
Mm-hmm.
The effects he has on his guitar, like there, I think it's track 2, Eaters of the Dead. He does like these crazy, like kind of squeals and like pinched harmonic kind of things. As it veers off into this like 70s almost jam rock kind of feel, and the whole while the guitar is really it's kind of screaming at you. It's so cool, and I don't know, he really captures a lot with the guitar performance. So that was a highlight. I do agree that his vocals, I think, fit the keys, because it's like they're not above, they're kind of just mesh right in between everything, and it just fits the vibe. It fits the Lovecraftian feel of the music. Like, I don't know, I always got a like a drowning sailor, drowning like kind of captain kind of vibe from his performance. Like, this album definitely feels of the water. So I do still have issue with the keys on some songs, where I kind of wonder if they were maybe used with a little bit more restraint. Like, this album could have opened up in a whole different way. But I don't think they dampen the performances, I think they add more than they hurt at the end of the day. So
All right, Jim.
So yeah, lots of good stuff that Logan said there. I'll just add to it. Mark Approach is playing on this with that sort of trademark breadth of guitar playing. Where he's got the electroacoustic type intros and interludes and stuff. Very cool scale-based riffs where he's just like doing runs over the riff while he's singing over it, and double bass is like following along with it, and just really cool, interesting stuff to kind of, your ear can feed on as you're enjoying the song. He just tweaks, that the metal and thrash genres in his way, and sort of has always been able to make them his own. And he does that here, even on a song like, Keepers of the Devil's Inn, that chord progression, as it's kind of ascending up, if you think about it, it's sort of reminiscent of the same key changes in like In My Darkest Hour of Megadeth, but he takes that riff that is kind of bone simple in that song, and just, throws like a scale into it, and it just makes it more fun and more interesting, and gives it like far more color, and that's just, you know, a tribute to his, you know, originality as a musician, is that he can take like a, you know, a familiar key change and add his own voice to it, and elevate it. And that's sort of like, you know, riff, you know, extravaganza that he, you know, employs is evident all the way across, you know, the breadth of the record. um I love that you called out Tomb of the Unnamed One, man.
Such a best song on the album. So good.
I love that one too, and I kind of thought, I was like, man, you know, I'm probably going to be alone here, but man, that's the one that I really
Oh no, it's a banger. So moody, such an
it
emotional, dark.
It is. And going back to, you know, Mark's guitar playing, he plays just these very evil sounding chords on it. They're not power chords. He, I don't know exactly what to call them, so I'm not going to embarrass myself to try to say what they are, but I think there's some triads buried in there. But they just sound evil, and it just makes you feel kind of uncomfortable and ill at ease while you're listening to it, and adds to that whole spooky flavor that the record has in a really cool way. And every time that song comes back around, like it drew me in because it's unsettling. You know, it isn't and melodic in a way that makes you feel like you can just listen to it. It goes one ear and out the other. It demands your attention. And then it gets to that chorus, which I think is one of the best sung and coolest and opening choruses. And so that's great to give you that sort of tension all along the verses. This real tense kind of a feeling. And then to open the skies wide with a great vocal and a super memorable chorus. So, you know, that we're talking about, composition. That's great composition right there, to that kind of push and pull that keeps you intrigued, you know, in a song. So that one right there is just a highlight and indicative of Mark's genius. But going back to the organs, when I say missed opportunity, I wanted to kind of expound on that, and I feel that the organs don't detract from the record, but I feel like they could have done even more. And what I mean is, if Mark had instead like employed someone that was like a true keyboard or piano or synth player or what have you, where that was their primary interest, I feel like they could have added like atmospheric elements or counterpoints musically to what he was doing to
Yeah.
sort of create like a whole other expression to add more color to the song. As it is, the organs, just as I already said, you know, they stand as, you know, like a strengthening of the riff, kind of, put an emboldening of the riff, if you will. Yeah. But I do, when I listen to the performances here, because they're so in line with what the riffs are doing, I'm like, wow, if someone was in there just saying, hey, this inspires me to play around this riff like this, and to do runs around the riff, and to give even more identity to the songs that way. I think that would have been really, really cool. But, you know, it isn't like a ruining of the album for that. You know, it doesn't destroy the record or anything. It's just something that I felt important to call out, because I do get that feeling like, wow, if they'd gotten somebody, I see a lot of mention of Uriah Heep and stuff like that. If they gotten somebody that could kind of play like that around these riffs, you know, what could have been, right? But there's still enough here with the way the musicians kind of, well, I should say there's just two, but the way the music itself kind of comes together, and every component is elevated because Mark is just an extremely talented musician. He has great leads that he can play real fast, he can play real slow, but all the while there's great phrasing, and that phrasing is prevalent in the bass playing that he does on here. And also, I almost forgot, man. We got to talk about Mark's vocal, man, because man, I love the scratchy delivery he does on this, and he experiments here, man. There's some like death metal vocals there once in a while. He's like, I'm like, you go, Mark, man, do it, man.
Well, some of that
And-
is Brian Hellroady Patrick too. He's saying
Oh,
on
he's
2 songs, and listening to it closely, it sounds like he's doing some background stuff too. Their voices
yeah.
are very similar though.
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
cool. I've always had trouble telling them apart. I know you're always calling me out for that, Mario. Like, oh, that's the roadie guy. I'm like, oh, I mean, kudos to him for sounding so much like Mark. But
Yeah, I think that's why Mark had him come on. He was he felt self-conscious about blowing out his voice, and it was good to have a guy that sounded like him, you know.
well, either way, it was cool and it was unexpected to hear that. And again, he's taking all of these different little tenets of metal that we like, and he's employing someone else to do the performance or not, like it still kind of creates that still kind of aura around Mark, where he's just got great ideas and taking them and making them his own. And this is just another example of that. So yeah, really killer musicianship. The spookiness vibe, I think he sought after with the whole EC Hellwell pseudonym thing, but he delivers with the lyrical content. We've got horror stories, real true crime stories. We've got all kinds of cool stuff to draw from here, and that's what Mark is. He's a storyteller, and and compositionally, I think you have to call that out too. If you can deliver like novels and short stories and or themes from like movies or even true crime, but you can deliver them in such a way where you're drawing in your listener and they're right there with you, and they're kind of imagining this world. That's kind of like an X factor for a front man to be able to do that, and I think that Mark always has. He's always been able to kind of world build for you as a listener. And that's just as alive here as it is on the Manilla Road records, and that's something that I appreciated and really enjoyed. Is I could still get into a different realm by listening to Mark tell the story.
I don't know. I have much to add. You guys nailed this on the head. I just think that one difference I was just thinking about when Jim was talking about the solos here, that the one difference between Hellwell and Manilla Road, I mean, Mark comes from the 70s. His playing, I think, in some aspects is very influenced by the 70s, meaning if you listen to some Manilla Road stuff, there's very long sections cordoned off in each song for these long solos that are, in a way, they're kind of jam oriented. They kind of flow in and out of feel. They at times feel improvised. There's just, but they're always good. They're always within a really cool scale. They do some great. He recalls some certain things in them every once in a while to key you in that it isn't all improvised. There's some definite points that he touches upon, but with Hellwell, the solos are they're trimmed down quite a bit. They're maybe a little bit more aggressive and to the point at times, but still absolutely fantastic. But as far as the songwriting and composition on here, I think you guys summed it up really well. Nothing at all sounds out of place. I really love the fact that, you've got palm muted chug riffs that end with like these really cool note runs that it's just like feels thrashy. There's like a thrashy feel to it at times, and it really ups the aggression of these tracks. And the way his voice is gritty and locked in, it's a great union. It's just an absolute great union. And I will agree with the organ thing, missed opportunity of someone that actually I play synth. I'm a organ player. They're going to approach a song other than just following the chords or the riffs. And that seems like which Mark does do towards in certain songs. He does just kind of lay back and just kind of let it lay down an atmosphere as opposed to following every riff or doing little stabs, a ding, 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 to accent the chords and stuff like that, which is fun. But it just, he approaches it from a guitarist. And I like the fact that it feels like a mad scientist kind of way he wrote this album. He he went down, he wrote all these songs and he did it all other than a few little things here and there. And I think that's really cool, the whole mad scientist aspect of it. But when you get a lot of people that write music just by themselves and record by themselves, they tend to use everything and not scrutinize. There doesn't sound like a lot of stuff that I would have trimmed away on this record. So I think Tim was saying it starts to feel long 35 minutes in. I may have felt that until I got really used to the album. Once then I really fell into it and felt welcomed by the whole thing. There was nothing that felt out of place. I started liking it so much I wanted to hear the whole album. So I think that might be something, Tim, that erodes away the more familiar you get with this record, because, you know, considering that a lot of the stuff he wrote all by himself, I don't hear a lot of filler or waste on this record. Let's talk about the production. Logan.
So this is probably just as indicative of this album as it is this era of Manilla Road and maybe Manilla Road in general. But looking up certain reviews of this, as I was just, you know, feeling around what the reception to Hellwell kind of was, a lot of people just immediately was like, the production's bad, and then they kind of wrote off the whole album, which, yeah, I guess I could understand initially, like, because it does sound a little bit muffled, you know, especially with the presence of the organ as predominant as it is. But, you know, I kind of grew to really like it. I think it just fits the overall Lovecraftian aesthetic and atmosphere, and just that muffled feeling adds to, you know, it's at night, you're on a foggy waterfront vista, you know, there could be some tentacled being right underneath you, and I do not think it takes away from the music at all. In fact, I kind of do think it adds. So I really do not have any complaints for the production. I mean, I kind of like how loud and just unpolished the guitar sounds in it, because the whole while the guitar sounds very live and electric, you have this overbearing organ sound right on top of it. So it kind of like contrasts and balances out, you know, and it just makes it feel very organic. It feels warm and earthy, and I just think it fits, and it creates a very unique sound and style for an album like this. And yeah, the organ especially is I think a great stroke for the production. You know, it kind of is like a blanket for the whole album. Like, it really just sits on top of everything, and it kind of soaks up. Maybe the vocal performance of Shelton would sound a bit harsher if not for where the organs are in the mix, and it kind of just helps to ease everyone into, you know, what Shelton is doing, what the guitars are doing, and I just like the fuzzy feel that it puts on the whole album. And as I said, just this feeling of warmth, and just it feels inviting but creepy at the same time. So that's cool. The guitar performance, once again, it's very fuzzy, very electric and live. It sounds very 1980s to me, like basically what Manilla Road sounded like on, you know, the Deluge and stuff. Very much just a live amp kind of feel to it. Cranked just to 10 to 11, you know.
You can watch online where they're rehearsing. They're in a basement, in Mark's basement. He's standing in front of, like, right up against two full stacks in this little tiny basement. Hell Roadie is like through the opening in the other room singing. Like, he sticks his head in, look around, and goes, there's no room, and he's just like in this small room blasting. It's crazy. Yeah. Old school.
That is what it sounds like. The guitar, especially when he's like really laying into a guitar riff and like a solo, it sounds cranked to 11, and just, yeah, very much live and electric. And I said I love the feel. I didn't get a chance to talk about the drum performance for the musicality. I actually really like the performance by was it Thumper?
Yeah.
Thumper. He does a good job thumping away, I think. I like the double bass, and it sounds, once again, very organic.
Yeah.
Very
underproduced.
Very underproduced.
Organic, yeah.
Almost too underproduced in a certain way, but I think it adds to it. Like, you can hear just the thumping of him trying to keep up with the guitar rhythm, especially when Shelton lays into like a more thrashy, like double stroke kind of pace, and he's trying to keep up with it.
Throughout the whole history of Manilla Road, he always picked awesome drummers. He really
Yeah.
did. In fact, their old
This guy's
drummer,
no different, man.
Randy Fox, played on the old Manilla Road drummer played on the second Hellwell, and he's a great fucking drummer. Great, very busy. All in Duty, the guy that ended with them. What a great drummer. Awesome. They're just always great drummers. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
I gotta check out that second Hellwell. It was not on Spotify. This one
It's on
thankfully
YouTube
was,
Music,
so
but yeah,
I'll be after this.
it's great.
But no, I think the drum mix, it feels clunky, but in a good way. Which is funny enough. To me,
In a Manilla Road way.
kind of fits. It fits the way that the keys sound, because the organ feels kind of clunky. Like I feel like, I mean, I'm assuming he's just using a overblown synthesizer keyboard. Like, I mean, who knows what he's actually using?
Yeah.
But it sounds like you can actually feel the keys as they're like, being pressed. And I don't know if you guys have ever been subjected to a church service with a full accompaniment of an organ, but
I don't make it to church too often.
I know. Well, good for you, Marty. It's
thankfully
that's a good thing. I've been subjected to one or two Catholic masses where the church organ is very it's a dirge.
That's a lot of standing up and sitting down, standing up and sitting down, and
it's a lot of work for sometimes not a lot of payoff, but that's just my opinion.
Really? Anyway,
but the keys on this sound like a legit organ, where it's like the keys on the organ are kind of bigger and like take a bit of an effort to actually play. It kind of sounds like that to me. Like you can hear as one key is pressed to the next one, and I think it helps with the overall sound. So yeah, no issues with the production here.
Jim.
Yeah, this has to me that sort of same feel, not the sound, but feel as Manilla Road to me, in that it's a salt of the earth kind of production that Mark always went for. And you could say, well, is that, due to financial limitations or equipment, or was it an actual conscious choice? I don't know. I don't care. All I know is that is the vibe that I've always gotten from, Shelton's music, is that, it's not only that he would be a cool guy to meet on the street and talk to, but that his music, comes from, the neighborhood. It has this very sort of homey feel to it. Not something that's overblown and, frankly, meant for the masses. It's meant for those who get it. That's just the vibe I feel from Manilla Road, and the production to me here is emblematic of that. It just feels like, there's an accessibility there, not in terms of like accessible for the people at large, but accessible for the metal community to latch onto. It's not over polished. It's not under polished. It's just, right there, probably, something that, you could attain yourself in your home studio if you so desired, but that just makes the music more effective and powerful for it, because that is the highlight of the presentation here, is the actual songwriting and the songs themselves, and the rawness of the production here. And really, for me, any of Shelton's releases is part of the charm for Manilla Road. It makes it feel, close to the chest, and I like that, and I wouldn't take that away. I wouldn't say that it's like demo quality. I think it's on a higher level than that.
Yeah.
But I would say that it also, feels like a very small studio quality, but I like it for that, and to me, it just sort of emphasizes how awesome, Mark's songwriting skills are, that, he can weasel his way through, what some could say is a limitation, I think it's something to praise. Is I like the unpolished production, but for him to be able to kind of rise above that through his songwriting and still be super effective in creating a vision for you as a listener, just shows how awesome of a musician he was. So I like that. I'll use the term again. I like that kind of salt of the earth production that this has, because I think it just highlights the strength of the music. And putting this into 70 tracks, on a studio or something, the songs would still be there, but I think that they would not shine as brightly if they were polished more, as backwards as that sounds. I think the songs stand out more because there is that sort of next door neighbor studio feel going on, and so I really like that. Now, having said that, from more like an overall perspective, everything is here. Like the mix is really well done. You can always hear the bass. Obviously, this, as we've spoken at length here, the guitar, it's a guitar forward album. But the organs, they're there, and they're loud and they're present, but they don't overpower everything. Somehow this is a guitar forward album with an organ that's right there in terms of levels, but doesn't overshadow what the guitar is doing. And obviously, I think that's part of the fact that it follows what the guitar is doing. But they still don't ever annoy the ear, even on headphones or anything. It just sounds right, and they're able to capture that sort of really unique tenor of Mark's voice here, and where it blends really well with that kind of crispy tone of his guitar that I mentioned earlier, and there's just really nothing to complain about. I won't say much more other than say that I do like the drum tone. I do like the slap of the kicks here. Everything just kind of works, but that's Manilla Road at large. Like that's Mark, and that's Hellwell too. It doesn't, for me, it doesn't annoy. It just invites,
Yeah, and the production, I saw someone mention the production being bad or something in the chat early on, and this is one of those production styles to me, and the same with the Manilla Road records during this era. They sound bad for the first 30 seconds. And then once you're over the initial, wait, this isn't top of the line production, that goes away once you hear the strength of the material and the fact that the mixing is really good, and the fact that it sounds good in its own way. And like I said, once you're past the 30-second mark and you're in that environment, it feels the way it's supposed to be. And like these guys both said, there's nothing here that's out of place or wrong. The guitars have their own loud, rich vibrance to them. The drums are weird sounding, but they still got the thud and the plunk of a real kit. It's like you're in the rehearsal room with the guy. Vocals are where they're supposed to be. The organ, very rich, old organ sound. I don't know. I really don't think, if you're here for the music, the production, I mean, if you listen to some of these raw, shitty black metal records and tell me they sound great, it's just kind of the same thing. But at least here, there's more of an old vintage vibe to it. Something that they couldn't afford the big studio in the 80s. So I have a buddy that knows how to record. That's the vibe it is here, but it's good. It's good. Kellen, where's Kellen? Is Kellen in here? Yeah, come on in, Kellen.
He's popping around the chat. He's driving.
We're still going, Kellen, so you might be able to get your licks in here when you get home. Anyway, yeah, production odd for about 30 seconds, but not bad. It's not bad odd. It's just different than everything else coming out in the early 2000s. Most everything that came out sounded amazing. So, and ever since then has sounded amazing. So hearing something with a little less polish doesn't take away from the strength of the material. Where are we at here? We are favorite, least favorite songs. Jim, we'll start with you.
Yeah, as we've already talked about, Tomb of the Unnamed One. What a great chorus, cool scale based riff there. Just eerie sounding, guitar playing that prepares you for this big wide open, vocal delivery on that chorus. Good runs on the double bass. It just has everything that you want from this record. The organ playing here, I think it's just a little bit higher in quality. I do like how it starts with the classic metal tom hits. That's always like a draw for me. I love that. Dun, dun, I bring it. So,
Primal Thud.
yeah, Primal Thud. I love that. That's awesome, man. Yeah. So that one's absolutely my favorite song. Close second is the opener. I'm always a sucker for a good opener, and no groundbreaking news here. We say it often. We tend to like the first songs here are the albums we choose to cover, but this is falls right in line with that. Strange Case of Dr. Henry Howard Holmes, which is a really cool story. If you've ever read the book Devil in the White City, or listen to the audiobook, it is absolutely harrowing what this guy got away with. It's he literally built a hotel of hell and murdered people for years.
And sold their skeletons to schools, didn't they, or to medical?
Yeah. I mean, the story is absolutely amazing. This is prime content to cover for a spooky Hellwell record. So I love that he chose that. And if you don't know the story, look it up. It is absolutely terrifying. And but yeah, great vocal experimentation here. Killer riffs, just it's everything you need. Let's see. There really is no bad as usual. For Mark's music, for me, there's no bad songs in here. There was nothing that there's no song that I like fast forwarded through all the multiple plays I did this week. I do want to also highlight the closer, end of days, the 30 seconds of sound effects to start, the synths and the flutes kind of thing. I liked the long intro here. I think it worked to
cinematic.
Yeah, right. Cinematic is the word, Mari. It really got you ready for like what you want it to be, like a big epic closing to the album, and it completely delivers. I like here on this song, the organs do not follow the riffs; they follow the vocal, and that is super cool. And to give attention and a sort of a magnification of what Mark's doing with his voice, and it made the organs themselves sound more necessary here. With that sort of following the storyline of the song. So very, very cool choice there. Lots of cool riffs. This is a very long song, but that sort of 7 to 8 minute mark, man, that flurry of riffs right there in that middle, man, it's just stellar riff after riff just coming at you, pounding you in the face. Absolutely, definitely check that out if you haven't. The solo is amazing as well. So yeah, lots of great stuff to talk about that closer here. Super strong closer. So yeah, those are my favorites. Tomb of the Unnamed One, the opener, and the closer.
Logan.
Yeah, I mean, no subpar songs on this album. Everything I think hits in some way and belongs here. The comment on the organ and the guitar play work one more time. I do think the first half of the album, it does feel like the organ that's when it's really trying to be right on top of the guitar and the riff writing. But then as the album, goes on in the second half, that's when they change it up a little bit. Jim, you mentioned the closing track, and of course, Tomb of the Unnamed One, it kind of separates itself out. It was just interesting that it seems like Mark gets a little bit more adventurous with how he writes the organ into the album, like as it flows. So Eaters of the Dead actually might be my favorite song on the album. It just, to me, that's when the album really kicks into high gear, and it gives me what I want from this, because this ended up being a guitar like riff album for me. Like, that's my favorite parts and moments, is when the guitar work is just very forward. And man, that main guitar riff for Eaters of the Dead is just, I think especially after the opening track, it kicks in. There's an energetic bounce to it, and I just love the feel of it during the verses, like as it's kind of veering off, and it feels like a 70s jam rock, kind of riff, and it's got these squeals, and yeah, it just makes the song very fun. I love the lyrical nature of it's singing about Vikings, I guess, going up a witch who can summon zombies. It sounds like it's cool. It just changes it up. It's a fun, different subject matter for the album. And then the final tempo change of the song at the 350 mark, where it kind of starts to slow down and gets a bit doomier. It feels cinematic for sure. And then Tomb of the Unnamed One, as Jim said, as Marty said, that's definitely up there. I think it's the most atmospheric of the bunch, and the keys really do break away just to create this atmosphere, and especially during the chorus, which
they get out of the way. They get out of the way, which is cool.
Yeah. But they're still there. Like, you can still hear them, and it's really building out the sound. And yeah, I just love the chorus. I love the references to Dagon and Acheron and all of these different Lovecraftian things, and how he builds up to the plateau that is the chorus. I think is really cool and feels just very dark. It's a very dark song. I like the Heart of Aharim or Armin. I don't know. Track 6. Once again, it highlights the guitar work and the organs kind of playing not the same thing, but working together to actually make a cool moment. Like the main guitar riff that kind of carries the song and starts about a minute and a half mark in. It really it plays off one another. Like, it starts with the guitar doing like this very palm muted thrash kind of chug, and then the organs come in and kind of help mirror it, and be like a balancing out point to what the guitar is doing. So I think Shelton really got there with incorporating the organ into the sound a bit more organically than just copying what the guitar is doing. End of Days, I think, is a progressive triumph to end the album. I mean, I think it works as long as it is, because no other track even tries to, surpass the 6-minute mark, let alone 10-minute mark. So when you finally get to this, it feels like a suitable payoff to the album. And I think maybe initially this is what made the album feel a bit on the longer side, but as I became more comfortable with this song specifically, the feel of the album being long kind of shrunk for me, and I really don't have an issue with its runtime currently. The main reason why I like this song is because of that riff section you were talking about, Jim. It starts about the 6.5-minute mark. It's just like this chug riff that comes in, and you gotta bang your head to that, and then finally it really hits at about 7 minutes and 45 seconds, and the keys and the guitar. It's like this palm muted, like,
yeah. He's like singing,
it's really cool.
Over the top of it. Very cool.
It's and that to me
I actually wrote 7:45 in my notes, man. That's the exact moment.
Because that's when it starts. I spent like a good 30 seconds to a minute trying to rewind to find the exact moment where it's just
That's it right there.
It's awesome. Probably one of the coolest sections of the album, and I like how it takes its time to open. Like, it takes a couple minutes to really get going, and then it takes a couple minutes to like close the track. It just feels climactic. It feels like a more thematic, like soundtrack kind of way of closing an album. And I think that it works because this album is a mood album, and it is a like Halloween kind of album to me. That's what it feels like. And You can get away with having, closing with the door, because there's like a little sample of the door closing and the lady screaming. You can do that on a Halloween album, and it sounds awesome. It's not cheesy. I love it. And you can open with like a minute of like, keys and stuff, and close the same, because it just adds to the atmosphere and to the feel of it. So yeah, all 4 End of Days, and really all the songs on this album.
Right on. For me, the best song on this album. Well, we'll get there. It seems like after, where did I put it down? Track 5, well, Tomb of the Unnamed One, the album gets really dark, which is very cool. But Tomb of the Unnamed One, holy crap. It's one of those songs that when it's done, I'll listen to it 3 more times. It takes me twice as long to listen to this record because I can't get past the song. It's so good. The chorus is so good. But the chorus, the feel and the singing is the same, but he changes the lyrics. Different demons. Under the statue of Dagon, monster that I cannot name, son of the father of demons, there will be no hope of salvation. Vampires will rise from the flames. Come, Acheron. God, the lyrics are so good. And so it goes through, Titans and Typhon and all these other Lovecraftian demons. It's just awesome. But there's a darkness on this track that really kind of stands out on the album for me. Very sinister flow. The part that contributes to it, there's a couple moments where the vocals are doubled. There's like a pitch shifter lower, and then him kind of doing his gristled wizard over that. It just adds a cool dark vibe to it. What else do I have here? Yeah, synth. Yeah, the synth work adds to the darkness by focusing on simplicity rather than following those riffs. And then the vocals, which I already talked about, singing those awesome lyrics. Thematically much darker, and it fits the perfect riff work and overall heaviness of the album. But the song in particular, there's just this emotional, dark emotion to it. End of Days is another favorite. I really love the synth textures and sounds on this one. Feels, like I said, very cinematic. Even when the way the song starts to fill in, it has this Arabian vibe to it, which kind of sets this one apart from the rest of the album. But once it gets going, it's dark and brooding, good flow, excellent melody lines, great riffs. Mark's vocals, he even tries to get a bit dirtier on this one. Makes it more sinister. Great song, great ending to the album. I remember when I first got this and hit play, and the Strange Case of Dr. Henry Howard Holmes. Right away, the organ sound has a Under the Big Top circusy vibe to it. Oh, it was a big turnoff. I'm like, what the hell is happening now? I don't know if I like this. But once you read the lyrics, Jim perfectly sized up what the lyrics are about, and it's about the World's Fair in Chicago. I mean, the whole vibe is perfect. He matched the spirit and the vibe and the theme of the lyrics with the flow of the sound and the fun aspect, a dark fun, because what was happening certainly wasn't fun, but it's a great lead off track. It kind of sizes up what's coming. This is, Manilla Road is a touchstone here, but it's a slightly different animal in ways. Eaters of the Dead, nice awkward double bass banger. It's cool. So the riffs aren't exactly played out the way you'd expect them to. There's a clunkiness to them that really works well. The organ, he does these stabs to accentuate certain power chords. Kind of annoying, but kind of works too. Vocals, a little bit drawn out at times, but he does fall into following the riffs verbatim on occasion, which is part of the problem. My least favorite song on here is Deadly Nightshade, which is one that Brian Patrick sings. It's a good song. When it comes on, I don't dislike the song, but he really sticks closely to following the riffs with the vocal lines. It's a little visionless, but I do like the way he opens it up when the chorus hits. He sings more open, so it leaves it a little more open-ended, a little expansive, but then closes it back off when he gets back into the main riff. It's still a good song, but it's my least on the album. I do like Keepers of the Devil's Inn too quite a bit. I like it. It's the third song on the album, and there's the placement of the song starts with a subtle church organ and clean guitars. So it kind of breaks off all the heaviness. It starts off, it feels like, oh, this is going to be kind of like a ballad type of thing, but then the guitars and everything fully kick in. The song, it really feels like there's a good cohesion in it and a flow that truly gets the album started for me. I mean, I really like the first two songs a lot, but this track is where it all kind of congeals and really starts to get a feel for what the album is going to be for me anyway. The great solo on this song too, but yeah, I think that covers about all of it. There again, I don't dislike anything on the record. I do like the second half. Well, starting around track 5 is where the album really gets kind of dark and a lot more adventurous, I think, and ends on a really strong note. Judgment, final thoughts. I guess we're not going to get Kellen in time. Maybe he'll show up here. Judgment, final thoughts, Jim.
So yeah, man. I had heard Hellwell before. It had been a while, but I hadn't heard it before. So and I liked it then. I still like it now. I did notice, as I mentioned earlier, it was, the following of the guitars by the organs, which, definitely a bit of a downer for me. I wish that there was more, real kind of musicianship playing around the riffs there. I think that would have really elevated things here, but it's hard to keep a good man down. And that aside, this is just, another great example of Mark's, command of the heavy metal genre. Whatever he touches turns to gold. And, okay organs in his hands, just, doesn't detract away from the greatness of the songs. So, yeah, on my scale of buy, not buy, would not buy, or buy cheap, I would get this. I wouldn't pay $35 for the vinyl, but yeah, I'd pay like $25 for the vinyl. Manilla Road's always going to be my go-to, of course, but there's still enough like difference here in tone with what Mark is, giving to us, that it's still worth, having on the shelf to have a different experience of what his playing can be, and delivery from vocals and lyrics and everything else as well. It's just another way, another dimension of his art form, so it should be experienced. And it's one that, like, Marty, you said something earlier, like that it just continued to grow on you. And I think Logan, you said it too, actually. You said it continued to grow on you. And I often find that records that that have to grow on me, or that do grow on me rather, end up being the mainstays. The ones that I get excited about right away, I'd say about 50% of the time they fade out just as fast. But the ones that require an investment, will keep you coming back. So, I plan on returning beyond the boundaries and seeing
repeatedly.
Yeah.
Awesome. Logan.
Yeah, this ended up really surprising me. I mean, from the first spin or two, I went from feeling kind of lukewarm on it, kind of like, this might be one of those, it's just going to be a sound that doesn't click with me, to kind of really getting into it. And it definitely was a grower. It's a mood album. It's about the atmosphere. It's about the vibe. I think it's about the unique sound that it delivers. I mean, it is Manilla Road at its core. I don't think you can deny that. But I also don't think you can deny that the organs are such a prevalent part of the music that it does make it something different, and it does make it Hellwell, And I don't think I can come up with a project that is just like that US heavy metal kind of sound with a prevalent organ presence. I mean, of course, people were talking about Deep Purple and Uriah Heep earlier, but they don't sound like this. This sounds heavier. This sounds darker. This has that
More underground.
menacing underground feel and like production, and it's just a kind of a unique beast. And I could see this becoming a yearly tradition with this old Halloween season, like to me, it made me think of that Denial of God album that I pulled last year, which it's like not something I love that album, but it's not something I will listen to throughout the year. I will basically spin it like late September through October, and it's got plenty of flaws, but it's like something about the atmosphere and the feel of it it fits perfectly. And this ended up fitting that exactly. So
You're not world rocking that record in the summer. It just
no,
isn't.
I'm like, hey, it's May 1st. Let me put on Transylvanian Denial of God or whatever. So yeah, same with this. I mean, I think this is a very much all about the atmosphere and the transportive nature of the music. And yeah, I'm glad that I was able to kind of click with it. And I actually ended up buying it on my last spin before popping in tonight. So hopefully it'll be in the mail shortly from some eBay user. It was within the right Logan price range, of course, but that definitely helped. But yeah, great pick, Marty. Just very cool to see like that established 2000s Manilla Road sound, but with a slightly different kind of through a different lens, and it fit the October month. So yeah, happy October, happy Halloween season, and yeah, I had a great week listening to this album. Probably like an 8 to an 8.5 out of 10, and I think it just still has room to grow. So that's why I'm not like settling on a rating, but it's definitely got potential.
All right. Yeah. Well, obviously I picked it, but for those of you these are high roller pressing. So both the CD comes with a massive booklet, and the LP look how thick that thing is. It's crazy. A lot of write-ups in here. The LP's got a humongous booklet as well, gatefold, poster, high roller treatment. Also check out the second and final album, Behind the Demon's Eyes, Paulo Girardi artwork. He was kind of the go-to Manilla Road guy towards the end there. But yeah, this album is great. I'm a humongous Shelton fan, Manilla Road fan, and this is an album that's grown on me quite a bit, and it's a project that's grown on me quite a bit. I think it stands just as tall as that era of Manilla Road stuff, if not maybe a little bit more unique, which I think might have been what he was going for and maybe why he wanted to separate a little bit, even though I think Manilla Road was so much him. He was so much of him invested in it. Oh, wait, look at this guy. Ha, he made it. Yeah, I think I'm with Logan. This is 8.5. It's not the last time Shelton's been on the album club twice, and it won't be the last time. There's so many great albums to discuss. One of us will be pulling one here one of these days, I'm sure. But Kellen,
hey, how we doing? Coming in a little bit sloppy and late here.
Tell us what you thought about Hellwell before we're getting ready to close it. But I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I'll just make quick little thoughts. It was like an interesting bridge in my mind from Shelton's sort of 70s past. Like his earlier albums, it feels like he's so far rooted in 1970s sort of psych jam rock. But by the time you get to Crystal Logic, it's so well developed in terms of what the band would become. So this record to me also felt like it was something that inside of him where he never quite left or wanted to potentially explore more what was going on in those first two records. But he also never like really left the underground. What I mean, in my mind, Shelton was paying attention to like the rise of more aggressive metal. And you can definitely hear that once we get like the inclusion of Randy Thrasher Fox definitely shifts the sound of those Manilla Road records. And by the time you get really to like, in my mind, Deluge, they're paying enough attention to what thrash is doing. But Manilla Road had like carved out this space. So the band could only get so aggressive before it left essentially what the brand was, right? So there's parts of this record that I also feel are far more rooted in like a more aggressive thrash sound. So it just
yeah.
it felt like a sort of interesting sort of polarity in terms of the influences here that you could not do potentially under the Manilla Road banner. So it was a fun listen. I got a lot of the conversation seemed to be about the organ tonight. It's a noticeable presence on the record. And I loved it, to be perfectly honest. Like, I had no problem with it. I know some of the question that was posed tonight was regarding if it helped or detracted, or if it did enough to separate sort of the identity of this project, which I think it did well. So it didn't bother me at all. And more, I guess, in kind of closing, since we're doing our sort of summary here, as I come in at the last moment to talk, it's just like, sometimes these sort of side projects end up being sort of major failures
Or let down, or
you know?
half-assed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this was kind of a cool sort of side discovery for me. I know as to whether I feel like I need to track it down, but I'd never heard it before. And it was new to me, and I definitely enjoyed it this week. It's cool to get, I mean, Shelton has such a unique voice, and I know you were kind of talking about his talents as a guitarist. And for me, like, I think he's also his songwriting style, he's such a great storyteller. And I mean that both lyrically and instrumentally. I know that some of the guitar phrasing for me here also, I think, is one of his talents as a soloist. They always feel like they're part of the storytelling and the breadth of the song. So it's cool. It's a fun listen, and I had never heard it before. So thanks for bringing it to our attention.
Right. And you are picking for next week.
I am. So I came in here at the last second and grabbed the record and threw myself in front of the computer so I could jump in and do this tonight. But yeah, so this is for me a classic record, and it's, I think, been a little bit. I know last time I had a chance to pick one, I picked like a 2025 release. So we'll go back in time and potentially pull a classic off the wall that I think will be popular for this time of year. So this is the second full length from Italy's Mortuary Drape. I put in the comments there, but yeah, not Wheels of Steel. Sinister is the name of the record. So
Nice.
Yeah.
Mortuary Drape. Cool.
All right. Sorry, I'm chatting in the.
Yes.
All right, everybody. Good to see you, and thanks for joining us. Good to see you too, Kellen. Glad you can make it. And next week, Mortuary Drape, Friday. Friday is not happening. There's going to be a show, but we don't have anybody yet. So, but we'll be here. We'll be here Friday. We'll see ya. Thanks for joining us. Have a great week. See you soon. Listen to some Mark Shelton. God damn it. God.
You're not going to ask everybody what they got going on, Marty?
Oh, yeah. I was talking in the chat, and Kellen came in, threw him off my mojo. Logan, what's going on over on your channel?
On the
have something to tell us. So
I totally. I got nothing going on.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. No, I'm doing. There's some reviews hopefully coming up on Heavy Metallurgy. The channel's still kind of back burner stuff for now, but hopefully a review or two within the next 2 weeks, I think. So
sweet. Jim, what you got going on?
I don't have anything going on. I just want to give everybody else a chance.
All right, on.
I'm sure I'll be working with Kellen soon. I have been listening to a lot of Evoking Kellen.
Awesome. Kellen, we know you just ran a pretty massive race. What's going on other than that?
Healing. But I will be kind of putting together a video, I think, on some of the records that kind of got me through this summer. So it'll be a little bit of like, I'll put it in the chat for you there, Tim.
I've got it.
But yeah, probably just, I'll talk a little bit about, I haven't really connected sort of these two passions for me, sort of my life that exists outside of metal here. But so all the stuff that I use for training over the course of the summer that I spent time listening to, and I'll talk a little bit about my race. And then, as Jim mentioned, we'll be collaborating for the new Evoken release, doing a review for the channel. So I'll be coming here probably later this October.
Awesome. Well, there you have it. All is well that ends well, and we will see you guys next week. Cheers.